I spent 45 years in the United States. I served 2 wars. I paid $148,000 in taxes. I built bridges that moved armies. And then they put me in handcuffs in a parking lot on Valentine's Day and flew me to a country I'd never been to before. Let me tell you what it's like when the place you built with your own hands decides you never existed. But let me start at the beginning. San Cristóbal Verapaz, Alta Verapaz, Guatemala. A town of 2,300 people, a dirt main street, a market on Fridays. That's where I came from. I left when I was 9 years old, and honestly I don't remember much. I remember the smell of the wood stove, the sound of my sister's breathing at night on the other side of the colchón we shared, a dog named Tinto, the feeling of cardamom between my fingers during harvest. My father had disappeared 2 years before. Se lo llevaron, the neighbors said. They never said it again after that. My mother, Petrona, she was 39 years old, raising 3 kids alone in a country that was about to eat itself alive. The conflict was moving north. She made a decision. It was still dark when she woke me. I remember the cold, Alta Verapaz cold, the kind that gets into your bones even in March. She brought a basin of aluminum, water so cold it hurt. She washed my face with her hands, didn't cry. She never cried, not that I saw. She pressed her thumb against my forehead, slow, like she was signing something. And then she said it, in Quechua, my first language, the language I'd spent decades forgetting and then find again in pieces. Hanakachiri, don't forget to come back. I nodded. I was 9. I didn't understand yet that coming back was something that could become impossible. My uncle Marcos had papers, work visa, temporary. He had a notary in Guatemala City make documents saying I was his son. That's how we got on the plane. Guatemala City to Miami, connection to Providence, Rhode Island. March 1974. I looked out the window the whole flight and didn't know what to think, so I thought nothing. Providence was cold and gray and enormous. My uncle's apartment at 847 Cranston Street had 3 bedrooms and 6 people, and I slept on a mattress on the floor of the living room for 4 months. First day of school, I sat in the chair and didn't understand a single word. Second day, I started copying everything on the blackboard, letter by letter, without knowing what any of it meant. I figured if I copied enough of it, eventually it would make sense. It did. Took 2 years. By the time I was 12, I was dreaming in English. Here's the thing about those documents my uncle used. I didn't know they were fraudulent. I was 9. And the problem was, nobody ever fixed them. We kept thinking we'd deal with it later. Later. You know how that goes. In August of 1980, I was 17 years old, and I walked into a recruiting office on Broad Street and enlisted in the United States Army. The recruiter processed my papers, military documents, a social security number, everything. Nobody asked the questions that would have needed true answers. I didn't know enough to know what wasn't being asked. Fort Benning, Georgia, basic training. I was the smallest guy in the unit. Sergeant Kowalski called me Little Maya, first as a joke, then as something else. I didn't mind. For the first time in 6 years in this country, I felt like I belonged somewhere. The army didn't care where you came from. It cared whether you could carry your weight. I could carry more than my weight. They made me a combat engineer. Demolition, bridge construction, mine removal. I was good at it. The discipline wasn't hard. I'd been disciplined my whole life. And honestly, I liked the work. I like building things. I like the logic of structures, the way weight distributes, the way stress finds the weakest point, the way you account for that. Germany, 1982. Honduras, 1987. And then the Gulf. Operation Desert Storm, Kuwait, February 1991. I was 27 years old, and it was the middle of the night in the desert, and my team was building a bridge over the Wadi al-Batin under sporadic artillery fire. I was in the center of the structure, holding two metal panels while another soldier bolted them down. And then, an explosion, 80 meters out. The sound in my left ear didn't disappear all at once. It went slowly, like a television being turned down. I kept holding the panel. You don't let go. That's not something you decide in the moment. It's something you decided years before. The bridge was finished at 3 hours 42. By 6 hours, 2,000 American soldiers had crossed it. I watched from a distance, hearing the world at half volume, and I thought, I built that. Nobody wrote my name anywhere. The bridge is in the historical record. I'm not. I served tough years. Staff Sergeant, E6, Army Commendation Medal, Kuwait Liberation Medal. In 1988, a recruiting officer had told me, you serve, you get your citizenship. That's how it works. Nothing was put on paper. When I got out in October 1992 and asked about naturalization, the administrative office told me there was no application on file. You have to file yourself. I didn't have money for a lawyer. I thought I'd deal with it later. Later. I found Dennis Correa in 1993. East Side Property Services, 1204 North Main Street, Providence. He showed me the tool depot on my first day. I picked up a wrench, checked the torque, put it back in the right place. Dennis watched me do it. You done this before? He asked. I built bridges in Kuwait, I said. He laughed, thought I was joking. I wasn't. I put on the coverall and asked what the first job of the day was. 26 years I worked for Dennis. 26 years. I started at $8 an hour. By 2019, I was making $24.50. $3,900 a month, liquid. I supervised a crew of 6 to 8 guys, Guatemalan, Dominican, one American kid named Kevin that I trained from scratch. In 26 years, I missed 11 days of work. Dennis used to tell new clients, if Ruben says it'll be done Thursday, it'll be done Wednesday. I found Sandra at the Iglesia Evangélica Bethel on Broad Street in 1990. She was in the choir. I went once and went back 47 Sundays before I had the nerve to speak to her. We married in June of 1993. Stephanie was born in March of 94, Miriam in September of 96, Ashley in July of 97. All three at Women and Infants Hospital, Providence. All three American citizens from the day they were born. ¿Sabe what I remember most from those years? The routine. 73 Bucklin Street, apartment 2R, Olneyville. Alarm at 5 in the morning? No, actually I didn't need the alarm. Military habit. Coffee, 2 eggs, toast. News on the radio. Ripta, Route 29 at 5:45. 22 minutes to work. Home by 4:30. Caminada. The same 40-minute walk every afternoon. Bucklin to Manton, to Hartford, to Atwells and back. Dinner. Calls to the girls. Jeopardy on TV. I almost never missed a question about American history, if you can believe that. And every month, on the 15th, I went to the Western Union on Broad Street and sent $350 to my mother in San Cristobal, Verapaz. For 18 years, until she died in 2011. That's $75,600. That money built her a 2-bedroom house. Before, she was living in one room with a dirt floor. That money put my sister Lucia through nursing school. That money bought my sister Marta her first furniture. And the whole time I was paying taxes. Federal, state, Rhode Island. From 1980 to 2019, between the Army and East Side, I paid $148,000 to the United States government. Never collected Medicaid, never used food stamps, never filed for unemployment, not once. Do you understand what that number means? $148,000. I never saw a cent of it back. Christmas 2004. That's the moment I think about when I think about what I had. Apartment on Bucklin Street. Stephanie 10 years old. Miriam 8. Ashley 7. Sandra in the kitchen making tamales. Me in the back room assembling a pink bicycle. Miriam had asked for it in August. I'd been hiding it since October. Instructions in English. My two crooked fingers making the small bolts impossible. Tape in my teeth. I got it together. Brought it to the living room. Miriam screamed. I looked at Sandra. She was smiling with a wooden spoon in her hand. I thought specifically, this is what I came for. I need to tell you about the day at the East Side job, 2007. Nice neighborhood, big houses, the kind of clients who have lawyers for everything. The owner of the property came by while I was explaining something to my crew in Spanish. He walked up and interrupted. Hey, do you speak English? I said, yes. He recalibrated. Oh, right, sorry. And then, without pausing, can you make sure they don't use the main entrance? Use the side door. 3 seconds. I counted them. Sure, I said. I turned to the crew, gave the instruction in Spanish, and didn't look at the man again while he was there. Kevin, 23 years old, came to me later. Why didn't you say something? I said, because I needed the job. Pause. We all did. My face had been burning for 20 minutes, hands sweating. I'd wanted to say, I have a combat commendation medal in a box at home. I have a bridge in Kuwait that 2,000 soldiers walked across. I've been paying taxes in this state since before you bought that house. But you don't say that. If you say that, it gets complicated. And when things get complicated for someone without papers, it only ever gets complicated in one direction. That fear, it accumulates, it calcifies, and it makes you avoid exactly the things you shouldn't avoid, like renewing documents, like going to an immigration lawyer, like not leaving things for later. Thursday, February 14, 2019. Valentine's Day. 7 hours 12. I was in the parking lot of Eastside Property Services, opening the back of the work van, checking the tool inventory for the first job of the day, maintenance at an apartment building in Wayland Square. It was -4 Celsius. My breath made clouds. The radio in the van was on. Hotel California, Eagles. A black sedan pulled up behind the van. Ruben Esteban Koch, step away from the vehicle. I put the clipboard down, slowly, turned around with my hands visible. 40 years of military muscle memory. One of the agents hesitated for half a second. I saw it. He saw someone who moved like a soldier. Someone who had been a soldier. Yes, sir, I said. You're being detained for immigration violations. Come with us. Can I call my employer? No. Can I call my daughters? They said I'd have the opportunity later. The handcuffs were cold. I felt them on my wrist, and what I thought about, not my daughters, not 45 years, not the bridge over the Wadi al-Batin. I thought, the van. Someone needs to lock the van. Nobody locked the van. Miguel Sapon, my co-worker of 15 years, arrived 4 minutes later. He saw the sedan pulling out. He stood in that parking lot for 11 minutes, according to him, unable to move. Donald W. Wyatt Detention Facility, Central Falls, Rhode Island. 11 kilometers from where I'd lived for 22 years. I did 50 push-ups every morning and 50 every night because it was the only thing I could control. Calls were 25 cents a minute. I had $200. I did the math. 20 minutes a day. I used some of it on the girls, some on Dennis, trying to explain what was in progress on the jobs, who needed what, where the documents were. Ashley hired a lawyer, Brian Kowalczyk, Providence. He filed for review based on military service. The judge acknowledged the service, denied the review anyway. The law was the law, he said. The last visit was the worst. The three of them came together. First time that had happened. Glass between us, telephone handsets, plastic that smelled of other people's hands. Stephanie with her eyes swollen but her shoulders straight. The nurse who knows how to stand when everything is falling. Miriam with her hand flat on the glass. Ashley writing in a notebook while she cried. Taking notes, I realized, so she wouldn't forget anything. I told Stephanie, make sure they know who I am. She meant Olivia and Marcus, her kids, my grandchildren. I've never met them in person. Olivia was born after I was deported, Marcus too. I told Miriam, you're the one who stayed. You know what that means. I told Ashley, don't stop. Whatever you're doing, don't stop. And Sandra was there, in the back. After the girls stepped away, I said something to her in Quechua. None of the girls understood it. Sandra closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she said, I know. The flight left from T.F. Green Airport in Warwick, 20 minutes from Providence. 23 deportees on the charter flight. Handcuffs removed after boarding. I had a gray nylon backpack that Dennis sent with Miguel. 4 changes of clothes, a Spanish Bible with 30 years of service notes, 17 printed photos, my dog tags, the Casio watch. When the plane landed at La Aurora in Guatemala City, I looked out the window. Green, mountains, mist. I didn't recognize any of it. I'd left at 9 years old. There was nothing to recognize. I've never been here before, I thought, in English, because that's how I think. I've been in Coban for 6 years now. Alta Verapaz, same department I was born in, different city. I rent a 2-bedroom house for $155 a month. I work part-time at a local construction company, $450 a month. I wake up at 5 without an alarm. The army doesn't leave you. And I make coffee and listen to the radio, and sometimes I still find the Guatemalan accent strange after 50 years. My Spanish has an American accent. People here notice. They ask if I lived in the United States. I say yes. They ask if it was worth it. I haven't found the right answer for that yet. Stephanie calls every Sunday, 9 in the morning her time, 11 mine. Olivia sometimes appears on screen and says, "Hi, abuelo," with a full American accent. I say, "Hi, baby," and I smile the way I don't smile for anything else. Marcus is 4. He doesn't really understand who the man on the screen is yet. Miriam came to visit in 2022. 9 days. She cried for 40 minutes in the airport on the way back. I watched her go through the gate on the phone, and I didn't say anything, because there was nothing to say that would have helped. Ashley calls less often but longer. When she calls, we talk for an hour minimum. She's doing her graduate work at Harvard Kennedy School, public policy, full scholarship, and the case is part of her research. She told me after the fact. I was quiet for a moment and then I said, "Good, someone should." I still have the Casio watch, the $12 one I bought at a convenience store in Pawtucket in 2001. It still works. It's still set to Providence time. I never changed it, not in 6 years. People ask me why. The truth is, and I don't know exactly how to explain this, when I look at that watch, I can calculate exactly what time it is where my daughters are, where my grandchildren are, where Miguel and Dennis and Tiny Johnson are. It's the only clock I need. I want to tell you something about what it costs. Not the money. I already gave you the numbers. 148,000 in taxes. 75,000 to my family. 12 years in uniform. 45 years in that country. I know the numbers. What the numbers don't say is this. I built things in America that are still standing. The bridge in Kuwait. Apartment buildings in Providence. Houses on the east side that people still live in. With these hands, these two crooked fingers and all, I built things that lasted. Can you imagine? 45 years. And they deported me like I was a tourist who overstayed a weekend. Do you know what it's like to have your grandson look at you through a screen and not know your face? To have your daughters call every week and hear the distance getting a little wider each time. Not because anyone stopped loving anyone, but because life moves and you're not in it. Miriam still talks to me in Spanish, natural, easy, back and forth. But Stephanie, most of it is in English now, short sentences. I'm good, Dad, working a lot, talk soon. And Ashley, who is fighting for my case in a city I can't go back to, is translating me into footnotes and citations. The thing about Hanaka Chiri, my mother's words, that morning with the cold water and the aluminum basin, I spent my whole life thinking she meant, come back rich, come back successful, come back and bring the family out. That's what I thought it meant. I understand it differently now. She meant, don't forget who you are. Don't forget where you came from. Don't let the country you go to erase the country you came from. I forgot. Not intentionally. I forgot because I was 9, and then because I was a soldier, and then because I was a worker, and then because I was a father, and then because I was trying to survive. I became American in every way that a person can become something. In the way I think, in the way I move, in the way I dream. And it still wasn't enough to make it official. My name is Ruben Esteban Kochtzul. I am 67 years old. I was born in San Cristobal, Verapaz, Alta Verapaz, Guatemala. I lived in the United States for 45 years. I served in the United States Army for 12 of them. I paid my taxes for 40 of them. And I was deported without a single criminal charge to a country I barely remember, where I look at a $12 watch every day just to know what time it is where my family is. If this story matters to you, and I think it does, or you wouldn't still be here, share it. Not for me, for the others who don't have a daughter in Harvard fighting for them, for the ones nobody is writing papers about. Subscribe if you want to keep hearing these stories. They need to be heard. And tell me something. If a man serves 2 wars, pays $148,000 in taxes, raises 3 American daughters, and has never committed a single crime in 67 years of life, does he deserve to be deported? Tell me what you think, because I've been asking that question for 6 years, and I still don't have an answer that makes sense.